Well, on this show, I have quickly learned that our province is rich with talented writers. I've had a lot of different people on the program that have authored a book. They've maybe written many novels through the years. Some of them have just ventured into it for the first time. My guest today is someone who focuses on children's stories. Marianne Selinger is a proud Canadian children's author who has not only published one book, but she's got her second one just out recently. She's been an award winner already in her short time as an author, and she joins me by phone now. Marianne, thanks so much for taking our call.
Hi, Evan. How are you today?
I'm great. And so small town roots for you, Punnichy originally home for you, correct?
Yes, it is.
That's good. I mean, there's lots of that's a great community, and we've had different. Jeffrey Straker, very proud to be from Punnichy, Saskatchewan.
He's actually my cousin.
Well, that's a small world. That's small town Sask for you right there, for sure.
Isn't it?
So, Marianne, you have got a book. Your first children's book that you wrote actually became an award winner. That's a pretty good track record. One book, one award.
Yeah, in May, I actually won the Literary Gold Titan Award, which recognizes children's books that mesmerize audience with incredible narrative and vibrant illustrations and charming characters and fresh new ideas.
I love it. So let's talk a little bit about your first book. Have you always been interested in writing?
I've always been interested in writing. I started with poetry when I was younger, and my first book came from actually writing in an English class, and we had a project to do, and it was to write a book. And I have always been interested in working as a nanny, and this book was inspired. I worked in the summers for a family when I was back in Punnichy in high school as a nanny, and this is kind of where that book was inspired through.
So you wrote this book in high school and then have held on to it all these years?
Yeah, I wrote it in high school, and I was going through a tote a few years back, and I found this book in perfect condition. Of course, the way that you wrote it in high school with the big foolscap and the typing and cutting it out and pasting it, so it was in perfect condition from that. And so I decided I'm just going to figure out how to publish it.
Very cool. That, I was just thinking, you continue to win awards and do well as a children's author. That first iteration of your book could be valuable someday. You should hang on to that thing. Could be worth some money.
I've got it laminated now too, so.
That's good. So let's talk a little bit about your first book. It's called Meeting Nanny Heather, and you said it came from your love of that type of work, being a nanny. Talk a little bit about the book, the premise of the book.
The premise of the book is actually about two children, and they're meeting a nanny for the first time because their mom is going to work, and they're very apprehensive about meeting somebody new. And it just goes on to kind of show you that it's okay to, meet new people, and you might get something fun coming out of it. And it goes on to their first adventure, which in that book, their adventure is a circus. And so it has some learning opportunities and stuff in there as well. So, yeah, it was the introduction to Nanny Heather.
Yeah, I love it. And was the process in actually getting it to the point that you got it published, is that hard? What was that journey like for you?
It was a learning curve, very much so. First of all, I went on to a site called Upwork, and through there I found an illustrator. And I got all my illustrations done within about a month. And I was like, okay, now I've paid for this. I now got to figure out how to publish it. Went on to Google, your best friend, and came up with Amazon and started chatting with publishing consultant through there, and went through that procedure. And it actually went quite quickly once I started with Amazon and getting the book formatted and They did all of that for me. And then it was from there getting it marketed. And that's kind of what I was doing for this last year, was marketing my first book.
Does that include doing book signings and public appearances, those types of things?
Yes, I did quite a few book signings at like Cole's bookstore, libraries. I went through preschools in Moose Jaw and Quappel and Fort Quappel and Wynyard and Punnichy. Just kind of reading my book and promoting it and getting my name out there. I gave away copies at airports when I would be flying to children in the airports. When we go to Mexico, I gave away copies, so they went all over the place.
Very cool. Marianne Selinger is my guest, a Canadian children's author. Her first book, Meeting Nanny Heather, became a prestigious book award winner, Literary Titan Gold Book Award. So that had to feel pretty good. But what about the feedback you get from readers? Do you get feedback from parents and families about your book?
Oh, yes. I get, it's all been positive. Thank God so far. But I just, mostly a lot of people are commenting on the illustrations first because they're very vibrant and they're eye-catching. So they're very appealing to the children. And then the parents talk about the lessons that are learned through the book. And they couldn't wait for the second one to come out.
That's outstanding. So let's talk about the second one because it was just released here not that long ago. And it's a continuation on the Nanny Heather theme, correct?
Yes, it is. I'm doing a series of Nanny Heather. And
so what's the new book called and the premise?
Nanny Heather Goes to the Zoo. And it's actually been inspired. I was a nanny when I lived in Calgary, and I took the children to the zoo all the time. So that's actually when this book was written, was when I was living in Calgary. And so I just decided to, had another book to go with, so I decided to work on getting this one published. And this one is a lot more interactive. It teaches the children the different sounds that the animals make, places where the animals would live. And so it asks the questions throughout the book, and the children are like repeating and answering questions. So, and then at the end of the book, it's got a surprise for the children as well. So
good stuff. Marianne Selinger is my guest, the Canadian children's author. Before I let you go, is this going to continue? Do you continue the series, the Nanny Heather series? Will you venture off into other writing? What are your plans for the future?
I actually have another book that will be ready to go next year. And right now I'm actually working on doing an autobiography through poetry. Cool.
Good stuff. Well, this has been a good chat, Marianne. I appreciate you giving me some time, and best of luck with your book writing. And we look forward to seeing you in the children's section of our local bookstores in the years to come.
Thank you so much, Evan, for this opportunity.
Marianne Selinger, Canadian children's author, award-winning author, I might add, the Literary Titan Gold Book Award for her first children's book, Meeting Nanny Heather. And now she's got her second book out, Nanny Heather Goes to the Zoo. Great to see homegrown, local talent. Marianne Selinger, as I mentioned, originally from Punnichy, Saskatchewan, now residing in Regina and receiving a lot of accolades and writing success in the early start of her writing career. You're listening to 980 CJME and 650 CKOM. Good afternoon. It's been a full morning, full show this morning. Thanks to everyone that has joined in on the conversation. One thing we didn't talk about, but I think this is such good news for the province. Just yesterday, WestJet announced it was expanding in the province of Saskatchewan. This is great news, adding more seats, more flight frequencies to the airports in both Saskatoon and Regina, representing a 27% increase for the province. This is great. Daily service to Vancouver, Toronto, flights to Edmonton and Calgary, and they didn't leave out the sun destinations as well, returning many frequent flights to Cancun, Puerto Vallarta, twice weekly to Phoenix, once to Orlando, to Vegas. And this is happening in Regina and also in Saskatoon. There's some subtle differences between the two, but generally speaking, it's a significant expansion for WestJet flights out of those two centers. One of the things a lot of people complain about, if you like to do a lot of traveling, is the proximity we have to major hubs. And so the ability for people to get to Edmonton, Calgary, Toronto, those types of things, very important. Better yet, if you can secure and snag a direct flight. If you're heading down to Vegas, you want to go to Phoenix, those types of things. So this expansion by WestJet is certainly something that is met with applause. You know, we talk about the smoke that's out there today. I think about the athletes that are in Lloydminster for the Saskatchewan Summer Games. 1,800, roughly 1,800 youth in Lloydminster, and that's just the ones that are competing in the Summer Games. There's hundreds of coaches, staff officials, and of course family and friends that are there to cheer them along. It's a busy time, and you know the proximity, Lloydminster, right on the border, they are having all kinds of issues in Alberta with the air quality through the smoke, the forest fires, and those northern fires that are burning out of control are a big problem. So no doubt, I think they're going to be monitoring that very closely. We've seen no indication yet that they're stopping the Summer Games, but we have seen football tournaments and those types of competitions actually get canceled. That happened last year in Edmonton with the Canadian Football Championships because of the air quality. So we'll be following that closely. I hope for the sake of the kids that have spent so much time getting ready to be in this competition with the Saskatchewan Summer Games, I hope that they are able to continue. We also mentioned this morning, just breaking news right off the start of the show, that the Secret Service Director, Kimberly Cheadle, decided to resign after all. She was pressured yesterday greatly when she was doing that presentation to the House Committee. It did not go very well. Republicans and Democrats alike were all over her at the congressional hearing for not being forthright, not answering the questions, and ultimately helping people understand what the missteps were that almost resulted in the murder of Donald Trump. An assassination attempt. It obviously injured him. We know one person was killed at that rally, 2 other were injured. And as a result of admitting the mistakes, it was a failure. Secret Service Director said that right up off the front. Kimberly Cheadle announced this morning that she is stepping aside. So we haven't heard the last of this. There is the ongoing investigation as to what unfolded there, what led to that, what were the missteps. Those are things that we look forward to hopefully hearing more accurate information on as we move forward. Well, tomorrow morning, another full show. I'm looking forward to the conversation. We've got a whole bunch of different things that we're talking about. Did you hear about these fellas that were basically charged for hunting violations because of something they posted on social media? Note to self, if you're going to do something nefarious, don't post it on YouTube. Ended up in a couple of charges. We're actually going to have a rep from the government of Saskatchewan join the show. We'll talk a little bit about that, represented from the Conservation Officer Services. Then we're going to dig into some health reform expectations. Secondstreet.org, an organization we've had on the show before, have released a new documentary by secondstreet.org, diving into the state of health and the healthcare crisis across Canada and what health reform might look like. We'll check into that. The Regina Police Service Chief of Police, Farouk Sheikh, will be joining me on the show. And, of course, Saskatchewan's Smartest Radio Listener, which happens every Wednesday. And we wrap up the show tomorrow talking about small-town fairs and get, celebrations. What is your community celebration that you're so proud of? The big, colossal Abernethy Fair happens on Friday this week. Does your community fair rival the Abernethy Fair? It probably does. I'd love to hear about it. That's what we're going to end the show with talking about tomorrow. So I hope you can join us. It's going to be a great morning of conversation right here on 650 CKOM and 980 CJME.